All right. Good morning. Thank you, Tony, not only for the opportunity to come here today and talk a little bit about, what we're doing with energy here in the state of Connecticut, here in the great city of New London, but for all that you and the Chamber do for business around southeastern Connecticut and beyond. It's a great video, so thank you for that. It's hard to believe that it's been 5 years this year that I'm working on energy policy for the state of Connecticut. So I want to kind of tell a little bit of a story and tie us where we were to where we're going and the process that's kind of occurred in between to forge these great partnerships. Energy was expensive. Gas was expensive. Natural gas, oil was expensive. And then they came up with a new way to mine natural gas called fracking. And that was 10 or so years ago. And natural gas became abundant. The governor, Malloy, came in and transitioned as many as he could, homes to natural gas, and the proliferation and the use of natural gas spiked. The problem here in Connecticut is that we're at the tail end of the pipeline for natural gas, and supply became critical, and it became a bit sparse. Access was limited. The generators had to give way to the homeowners because the homeowners got natural gas first, and it created large peaks in the cost of natural gas and the cost of energy as we moved into January and February, those cold days right around the time that the Assistant Secretary of State is worried about the Super Bowl. We are worried about energy costs during that particular time. So what did we do as an energy committee? As an energy committee, we worked on an RFP to increase a pipeline to bring more natural gas here to keep the price down. That more or less failed due to the actions of other states, so we were suffering. Natural gas became less expensive, and it put pressure on our baseload supply, our nuclear supply. Here we have the largest generator in New England right here in Waterford. Nuclear across the country kind of suffered. 13 or so nuclear plants around the country either closed or threatened to close before their permitted life expired. And so where were we? We had trouble gaining access to natural gas. We have fracking, which is an environmental question. We have baseload being threatened, and yet we all want to promote renewable. We all want to move to the future that we know is renewable. But from my perspective, we needed to secure our baseload supply. And the last 4 years have been driven around a bipartisan effort to secure our baseload supply here in eastern Connecticut and beyond, and that is nuclear. And we've gotten to that point where we are about close to closing that deal and securing nuclear for the next 8 or 10 years so that we can build that bridge to a renewable future. Because without 50% of our power every day, all of the businesses in this room, that all of the residents in the state of Connecticut and southeastern Connecticut and beyond are going to be in trouble in terms of the cost of energy and supply. And we know about the economic impact that nuclear has here in the state of Connecticut with a $1.5 billion economic impact in jobs. So now nuclear has been hopefully stabilized, and we move into the next generation of energy. And what is that? Solar takes up a lot of space. There are a lot of people putting solar on their rooftops. We hope to encourage that. We're working with legislation this year. It's going to fix maybe and correct some of the opportunities last year that we passed in a broad energy bill. But really, this emerging industry of offshore wind is not only a wonderful opportunity for here in New London, it's a wonderful opportunity for the United States of America, because it's really in its infancy here. It is emerging. And New London, because of its great opportunity with this port that has no overhead obstructions, this port that has no hurricane barriers coming in and easy access in deep water, this port who is conveniently located here to access those grounds where these wind farms will be located, is a huge opportunity for southeastern Connecticut and beyond. So we want to send a message. We want to send a message to the emerging industry of wind and those folks across the Atlantic Ocean who have developed this industry into a huge industry. that we can coexist here in New London, not only with the great fishing industry, which I may have a personal interest, but the fact is that people don't realize that 8 to 10 million pounds of seafood cross New London and Stonington each and every year. That's an industry that we've worked hard over the last years to develop the sea scallops that you all enjoy. And that's a great product that's moving along. So we want to protect that industry. And we want to grow more maritime industry. And we can do that with the advancements and the improvements at the port that Secretary Bates talked about, and create the opportunity to be diverse. We know we're working on manufacturing. The great folks at Electric Boat and beyond, Sikorsky, everybody is moving forward to a manufacturing economy, and this should be no different. This business opportunity is just offshore. You know, I had the great opportunity to be first selectman, along with, I served, I think, with Tony Sheridan in the neighboring town. I was in East Lyme, and I was on the Council of Governments. And way back when, I think it was 8 or 10 years ago, Congressman Courtney worked very hard to get a Tiger Grant. And the Tiger Grant was to improve the freight line that connects to the Port of New London, and it goes north up through Norwich, Willimantic, Stafford Springs, Brattleboro, left and right, New York, LA, Montreal, to try to connect that port. And that was 10 or so years ago. Now here is that opportunity. We got that Tiger Grant, working with Congressman Courtney and the COG. We need to develop that to make sure that that freight line is sufficient to carry large freight cars and move product from this port. Because there's no reason, and I think you'll hear from Mr. Morrissey coming up, about the opportunities that offshore wind will provide, not only for energy and efficiency, and as we drive the cost down, but for jobs and opportunity in manufacturing and assembly, which we could connect on that freight line. We could maybe put assembly plants nearby if we have the property, but up close, near Willimantic and Columbia and north, where land might be a little bit more inexpensive and opportune. And we can put assembly plants and manufacturing plants eventually that will support not only wind, but some of the other resources here in New London. And that's why it's important. It's important to promote New London, because this is the economic future of the state of Connecticut, I believe, southeastern Connecticut for sure. And I applaud the mayor for all he's doing to try to position New London, because we are the answer, I think, economically to southeastern Connecticut here in New London. So what do we need to do as an energy committee? We just passed last week unanimously a concept that would provide for a request for proposal for 2,000 megawatts of offshore wind. 2,000 megawatts. New York has 9,000. There's a few other numbers in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. We need to be a player in the game. We can benefit from some of that 9,000 in New York as a staging area, perhaps in Bridgeport. We can help that city. We can develop New London, but we have an opportunity with Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island to really focus on this new and emerging industry. And so 2,000 megawatts, we think, over the next 10 years is a realistic opportunity, and I think it sends a clear message that we are ready to jump into this industry and support it with everything that we have. So I think that that is the future. That is where we are. You like that, John? You know, we changed the RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard, last year as part of that comprehensive energy law we passed. And that means that by 2030, 40% of the energy produced in Connecticut has to be from renewable resources. Now, there are people in this room who think that that's not enough, but I think we have to balance the practical with the possible. So let's get started. Let's push this opportunity that we have with offshore wind, which is, you know, we started with, 30 megawatts over in Block Island. There's not much more here in the United States, but across the Atlantic, it's huge. It's huge. So we can have that here. But we need to work together. We need to make sure that our cities are strong, like New London. We need to make sure that together we work across the aisle to make sure that we think about the opportunity exists not only for jobs and economics, but for energy independence. And we can do that by promoting this industry, and I look forward to working together with everybody, not only at this great table, but around the room and around the state to get this done. So thank you very much for the opportunity.